Reflection with the Ignited Teacher. As you can see, I have a very special guest with me today. What's your name, sir?
Justin Williams.
This is my son, Justin, and he's with me today to talk about what is the educator's role in social justice issues. So, on Sundays, I normally come on and talk about reflections in really just teacher stuff. But tonight is a lot different because of what has gone on in our communities and in the United States and the response to George Floyd. Um, by now, a lot of you all know that I am from Houston, Texas. So I do know some people who were classmates of his and that, grew up with him. And it's really interesting to, be that close to it. Because normally when things like this happen, we tend to be states away and you don't know people who were involved in it. And I just so happen to know of a couple of people that went to school with him at Jack Yates High School. So, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, I brought my son on tonight. I literally had to beg him to come, and he decided at the last minute because he told me no. But I think he has an interesting perspective as far as being, first of all, a black male, and he's 26-year old, um, and he, um, I want him to tell his perspective and why is it important to have teachers really to talk about these things with, because one of the things that I thought and felt was a sigh of relief. I'm appalled that this happened, but I was relieved as an educator because I was not there with my students, because I know the level of anger that they would have had. Because on Mondays, if you all don't follow me, on Mondays we did documentaries about this very issue. And the first time I showed them Sandra Bland, my students were so angry. And I had to calm them down to get them to look at it from a different perspective and not, be so emotional and talk about solutions and things that could actually be real solutions, viable solutions, not killing the police, but actually how can we get laws changed? What behaviors could she have exhibited to help her situation? Just different things. And I watched a video, I want to say yesterday or the day before, I watched so many where they talk about, we talked about our children complying, but it wasn't a comply situation. They pinned him down, and there is this conversation about, whether or not it third degree murder, second degree, and when did it become first degree murder? Because based on the coroner, they said that, the officer was on him on his neck for a total of 9 minutes. And then after like 5 minutes, the man was unresponsive. And when I looked at the video, we know he was deceased by the time the ambulance got there, because when they checked his neck for the pulse, there was no sense of urgency. So we could tell by the actions that there was not any life left. So I'm going to give my perspective on what the educator's role is in social justice issues. Now, these educator groups have been a lively bunch, and it's a lot different than what I have seen in the past. A lot of people are acknowledging for really first time that there's an issue in America with racism. And I can say that I am proud of the teachers who have started to speak out and check their own white educators, because that was unheard of prior to this happening. They would sit back and not say anything. And I've seen more educators speak up and quiet people who talk about, well, with this is not political. So when did racism become political? It is not politics. A man was killed. It affects the black community. It speaks to a larger issue in the black community. And I tell teachers all the time, if you teach black children, if you teach children of color, their issues become your concern, because you can't separate academics from a child's life. There's a blog post that I wrote 2 years ago. To know me is to know my history. If you don't know your children's history and you don't honor, acknowledge their history and the struggles that they have gone through as a black child, as a Hispanic child, as an Asian child in America, then you don't know your children. You're not teaching the children. You're teaching curriculum to a person. Then you wonder why children show up to school disengaged in what you have to offer. Now, I'm not going to get on my soapbox tonight about curriculum, because if you follow me, you know that I've said on more than one occasion that the curriculum that we teach our children, specifically mathematics, because that's my area, it does not meet the needs of black and brown students. It does not affirm them. It does not teach them how to use their gifts and talents to go into our communities to improve their communities. But one thing it does teach them, it teaches them how to be an employee for the rest of their lives, a slave to an actual corporation, system that does not value its life. So, the role of the educator is that your silence is saying that you agree with whatever is going on. And I hear teachers over and over again saying, well, this is not the place. Well, when is the place? So your children suffer in silence at school when you don't allow them to talk about it. My classroom is a safe space for my students. We talk about things. We pause the curriculum to address the emotional needs of the student, because they bring it to school with them. And if you are not allowing your students time to safely talk about this, then you are denying them a basic social emotional learning opportunity. And you talk about how you want students to be, talk about their feelings and be this and make better decisions, but you won't let them talk about what's really bothering them. And my son, who's normally a child of so few words, and he normally does not say much. And normally, when this stuff comes up, he'll tell you, I'll come in and have conversations with him. But this time, he came and approached me while I was sitting on the couch, um, about what happened with George Floyd for really the first time, because normally I initiate the conversation with him. So I want him to tell you why this is such a significant event with him as a 26-year-old black male.
Oh, I'm supposed to add to that.
Yes, you're not a comedian.
I'm not trying to be a comedian. This is just me. I'm just
Yeah,
funny. Okay,
whatever.
but
Speak.
whatever. I mean, I don't know where to begin. It's. I mean, it's just like the repeat cycle to me. I mean, I guess that's the last thing. I guess that's the biggest effect that it had on for me. I'm not looking at the camera. I think that's the biggest effect is that I mean I'm 26, so I've been old enough to see and recall all of the other additional mishaps that have happened and murders and unjustifiable actions by said law enforcement over the years. And it's just, I guess it's kind of like it's at the breaking point now, more so than ever. I mean, there's been riots before, there's been call to action before, but it's a little more volatile this time around because said, of course, a corona happening as well. So it's added more stress on people because people are already stressed out as is. So this happening just kind of put people over the top. But it just shows that it's just really time for people to start thinking of real solutions and stop being distracted by your social media, your apps, or the things that don't matter. And I do agree with the Ignited teacher over here. Um, yeah, it should be more dialogue in our schools to help kids be more aware and let kids express themselves because I mean 5 days out the week, 8 hours out of the day, or for some kids 10 hours out of their day, they're at school. So school should be a place where you can reflect and be able to talk about things and get your emotions out and thoughts out. And it's a place for education, so it shouldn't stop at just textbooks. And that's just my opinion.
Right. So, when you were in school, did you all talk about things like this?
No,
Y'all never had opportunity to talk about this.
no. I mean, if it wasn't about, oh, it depends. I guess it depends on the individual teacher. If you're lucky enough to have a teacher that's actually uh, hip and actually lets you talk and have freely. Usually in ELA classes, you'll find those kind of teachers who are more so will open dialogue for different kinds of thought provoking exercises in the classroom. I remember specifically at Booker T. Washington, my freshman year in high school, I had a teacher. God, I forgot her name, but she was black and she was I guess had that in kind of environment. So I mean at that point, I guess at this point it depends on the individual teacher, but school as a whole, no.
So y'all never really talked about it, and I guess that's kind of what we see today. Even as I talk about these things with my students, because I talked about it even with my fifth graders, my third graders, I talked about it with them because they wanted to talk about love and hip hop. So we would take the first 10 minutes of the next day and talk about these things. And it builds relationships. There was a lady that was in a group and she was like, this whole building relationship thing, what is that? And I told her, I was like, it's like you build any relationship with anybody else. You talk about things that you care about. You talk about things that you all like. And that's how you get to know your students. And if you cannot tell people about the majority of your students, especially those most vulnerable ones, then do you really know your students? And I know high school teachers will say, well, I have 120 kids, 200 kids. I get that. But there are certain kids that stick out like sore thumbs. And we do the best that we can to connect with those. But you have to keep an eye and ear out for those kids. But here's the thing. If you're not creating a space, and my son, would you graduate? 2012? He graduated 8 years ago. So we're not talking about something that is so far removed. He is a young black man, and they come with certain things to school and they're bringing them. And if you're not giving them an outlet, an opportunity to talk about these things, then children react in a certain way because they're angry. And especially white teachers. You're teaching African American kids. I hate that word African American, but we're going to go with that. African American kids, Hispanic kids. Um,
It's politically correct.
it is PC. It's politically correct, but I prefer black kids. If you're teaching these children, black kids gonna see you as they say, what y'all call them, the ops. They gonna see you as the enemy. But if you extend that olive branch early and give them a space. Like one thing I like about Jamie Sears and her group, Not So Wimpy, I think it's the fourth or fifth grade. And she said she expressed that she doesn't understand racism, and that's fair. If you have lived in a white community your whole life, if you have lived a white life, not ever coming in contact with black people or Hispanic people, I expect that from you. But don't be so closed minded like some of these people who are saying, well, they're rioting, they're doing this, that, and yes, they are. But don't focus on the effect. What is the root cause? It's the same thing with children at school. Why are the kids angry? There are needs that are not being met. And you know, a lot of people want to throw around Maslow's and this. Well, it's the same thing that can be applied to the black community. Our hierarchy of needs are not being met. A sense of belonging. We don't feel like we belong in here because what happens is we're preyed up on, and it's systemic or systematic. It's not just the judicial system. The educational system preys on our children. They use them as educational reform experiments. New Orleans has been torn apart. There's no continuity in curriculum. There's really not even a feeder pattern. There are children that school hop in Baton Rouge. Only thing that is holding Baton Rouge together is the fact that East Baton Rouge Parish still exists. When we have continuity and structure, black children thrive. And we're already have a lot of kids at risk because we have a lot of children in poverty. And you take away the structure and you want all these different charter schools. That doesn't benefit black children. That is an experiment. You're experimenting with black children and Hispanic children's educations. We didn't ask for charter schools. We asked for better public schools. We asked for better public school leaders. We did not ask you all to break up the public school system because it is a structure for our children that they don't have at home. Who wants to go to elementary school here, then have to go to another charter school for middle school, and then bounce back to another charter school for high school? We're educators. We educate our parents on options that are available. Some kids need different outlets. They need different charter schools, like schools for kids that have dyslexia. But to just dismantle a public school system, especially in an urban school district, that is wrong. It mounts to an experiment. And then we're not going to even talk about the housing market. It's economic oppression. They make houses so expensive that nobody can afford them. And then people cannot get a living wage. And then you have the prison system that is mass incarceration. So it's systemic and it's everywhere. Black people cannot get away from it. I shared on my Facebook page about this whole hair situation. And I laugh about it with my friends. But hair is always an issue for black women because the standard of beauty is always a white woman. Some people don't have straight hair, but yet you want them to wear it straight. Some people look nice in dreadlocks. Black people, they look nice. There are some people that look nice with dreadlocks. But yet we get dinged on our standard of beauty because it's not the white standard of beauty. And when we have kids in our classroom and you allow other kids to call them monkeys, there was a teacher, I kid you not, 2007. I worked at, I was out in Spring, ISD. There, the kids were acting a fool. So I pulled some of the little boys aside and I asked them, I said, well, what is going on? Why are you all acting like? They were like, well, she called us little monkeys. That's what we were acting like. So I what can I say to a child when a white educator tells the kids that they're acting like that? So that's what they started acting like that. And the lady was out in the hallway crying. And but you can't mistreat kids and expect them to act a different way. Social justice issues are important, and I know some teachers, they're not open to it. We have a lot of racist teachers in the US public school system. 80% of our school system, 80% of our teachers in the US are white. 7% are black. And of that 7%, 2% are black males. If you didn't think we needed black teachers, teachers that are going to dismantle this criminalization of black children, more specifically black males, we need you all. Teaching is not a get rich it's not a get rich thing. Even if you become a teacher as a man and want and progress as a principal, we still need the leadership. Some people who are going to affirm our children where they feel like they have a leg up, they have a chance in society. Because based on what happened with George Floyd, I can almost guarantee you my students feel like that it's hopelessness because they can end up being the next George Floyd or the next hashtag. That's what they see because a lot of our kids come from poverty, and as much as I try to breathe life into them and build their self-esteem, even with a curriculum that does not affirm them and supplement things that I know that will help them in life, give them an open door. It's only so much that one teacher can do. We need a system that is going to help our children thrive in America and teach them how to be productive citizens and feel like they have something to offer and build their communities. We teach black children and other children to build everything except for what we own. For example, even with the North area that I work for in HISD, my thing is you abandon your area, which you live in, the schools, to go cross town to somebody else's area. Why not help build your own school up? What's wrong with big? Because you live there, but you're abandoning it to go across town. There are things that you can bring to your own system, your own communities, instead of abandoning them. That's what happens. The void of resources. And then you have other people come in and prey on the community. So if you ever wonder what your role is in social justice issues, it's to speak up, provide a safe space for your students. You have anything to add?
Oh, I don't know how to follow that up. Ooh, God. Well, I mean, in layman's terms, be cool as an educator and a teacher. I mean, there you get a lot of more respect from us young people because we can smell the teacher that's just there for the check and doesn't care. Um, yeah, especially with the Caucasian teachers that do teach in the more what is it called?
Diverse communities.
Yes, diverse communities. Those people, we can tell if you really care about us or you really just there because you're just there to do your job and not. And I always think that teachers have a very special position with their children because you can be more than a teacher. You can impact these kids' lives. I mean, I still have the teachers that I remember who were different and let us kind of be individuals and let us actually speak our mind and engage with us. We remember those teachers for the rest of our lives. The teachers that come in and just want to teach us and not try to understand us, I mean, we actually probably want to get you fired, to be honest with you. We don't like you. And we'll show it. And like My mom said you got teachers that cry in the hallway because you don't relate to us, and or you not trying to at least understand us. And that's all teenagers really want to do is be understood. And if you're a teacher who's not trying to understand, then we'll just buck back at you and not, try to receive anything you're teaching. We'll make it difficult for you to where you wouldn't want to come back next year. So that's just how that goes. So I mean, if you're relatable and just try to be understanding and just understand difficult to teach kids, and try to get to the root problem of why they're acting out, or maybe, or sure, something like that. I mean, just understanding can take you a long way, I feel, in the education field.
So, do you expect white teachers to understand where black children are coming from?
We know you're not gonna understand because you're white. We understand that you probably don't understand, but you don't have to live our lives to make us feel like you care. But I mean, you know, you as a white teacher, you should want to be more understanding if you're working in urban areas. If you're working in inner city schools, districts, you should want to at least uh hear these kids out and try to listen to their stories, or find out what their story is. And we'll respect you a lot for that if you just try to understand, because you don't have to live the life to not understand what's going on with your kids. I mean, so
Yeah, I agree. And I've worked with several white teachers, and I tell them just be yourself. Bring the things that you can bring to them to connect with your students. Like that whole hip hop thing, you don't have to be hippity hop.
that's corny. That's corny. That rapping, make up a rap, and all this hippity hoppity, that's corny. You don't have to do that. Stop doing that, please.
Really?
Yeah, it's a stereotypical way to try to be hip with your kids. Like, you don't have to be original.
And what is an example of original?
I don't know, but don't do that. It's terrible. It's maybe if you're in high school, if you're a high school teacher, don't do that. Maybe in elementary school, I don't know, because they're kids. But even with that, you don't have to always do that. If you are, you know, there's different ways to engage. You don't have to always do a rap thing.
I agree. I do. I just say be yourself. If you like music, you may have some kids that connect with you on music. If art is your thing, bring that and connect with your children to build a relationship. Put it, embed it in your teaching, and kids will connect. You don't have to share the same. Because truth be told, he'll tell you, I don't like rap crap. I don't. I don't like rap music, especially the music of their generation. I do not like it. It has a lot of profanity in it, and it speaks ill of women, and it's degrading. So,
your generation started that.
No, yes, we didn't. Yes, the 90s, we had clean music.
No, you didn't.
We had clean music.
Who started that?
We had clean music.
What's NWA?
Hey, they were, but they had a message behind their music.
Have you listened? That's the last time you listened to an NWA album.
I grew up with them. That was my era.
There was nothing.
Yeah, it was laced with profanity, but it was a message of their struggle. You all and your people are out here with this foolishness, Molly Percocet. Who glorifies taking drugs?
That's y'all kids. I don't know anything about no Molly Percocet because I don't do Molly Percocet.
I'm just saying. I don't do so that's a whole nother issue. I don't do rap, but I don't connect with my kids on that level at all. I connect with my students on a different level. We talk about social issues. I talk about things with them that are personal to them and aspirations, and really building their self-efficacy. And that's where I connect with children. But it's definitely not on a hip hop. That is not my thing. But I do know how to play basketball. So I do have one up on You know, if you play sports, you can always get the boys on sports. Always. That's an easy target.
Huh? Hands-on learning is always good. That's another thing. Give us like hands-on activities.
To engage you on?
Yeah,
Like what?
most kids like myself back in school, we well, it's better to do. I mean, it's just a better option. It gives us something tangible to touch, and we can because more. I think majority kids are better learners when it's hands on. But
Okay.
I don't think put busting out a textbook and showing us numbers and all that on a board. I don't think that's very effective. I think it's very archaic, and I think that there needs to be more uh, standardized teaching as far as hands-on, just more physical teaching.
So what about real life stuff? Like this. Like
Real
even
life
with
stuff.
yeah, like today. Yesterday we have to get new cabinets. So I measured my cabinets and it made me think about my math lesson and decomposing well really composite figures.
Uh, I don't know about that, but I think um, in math classes there should be more budgeting type of
Why?
because a lot of these kids don't know how to manage money.
Is that an issue in the black community?
Yes, it's a major issue in the black community. That's not being taught. I mean, it's not being taught in the households because a lot of parents are not setting the greatest examples at home. So the most time that kids spend throughout the year is at school. So where can there be a better place to teach a child money management skills is at school? Because rather being at home, I mean, they're mostly at school anyway. So I think that a lot of young black kids of America can benefit from some money management teaching, how to budget. What is a budget? Um, you know, how it is to pay a bill. I think just they're not teaching children things. What's a hedge fund? Roth IRA. These are things that are not being taught.
Who taught you about a Roth IRA?
I had to learn myself. Self-taught with a lot of things.
Yes. So that's all I have for you all for my Reflection Sunday. And don't forget, you can still get on the wait list for my Math Intervention Academy. And some of the things I talk about um, now, like social justice issues, culturally responsive teaching, how to connect with your students. I do teach this in the Math Intervention Academy because if you are a math interventionist and you're teaching kids that are below grade level, you're going to need to know how to connect with children that have not had a lot of success. So I will see you all on Tuesday for Teaching Tip Tuesday. And I want to thank Justin for coming on with me. He never wants to do anything with me. I have to always beg him. But I'm glad he came today.
That's false.
That's true.
It's very false.
And I'll see you all Tuesday. Bye bye.